Thanks for being here with me. Welcome to Balanced Wellness Wednesdays with Beth. I'm so excited you're all here. If this is the first time you're joining me live, just a little FYI, I am live on Instagram and I'm also live here on YouTube. So, welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm so excited that you're all joining me. And if you're catching this replay on YouTube, please know that you can use the chapters that I've included below so that you can jump ahead and skip all of the intros and me waiting for people to sign on. And you can get right to it and pick the different topics and all the various things that we're getting into tonight. And then, of course, whether you're on Instagram or joining me here on YouTube, make sure you stay till the end for a little open Q&A and just an opportunity for us to chat. And I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. Hello, David and Shoshona, and hello, Mark and Jesse. Welcome. Thank you, everyone. And hi, everybody on Instagram. So again, if you're here with me live, wherever you are, and you do have to leave us early, please know if you want to catch the full replay, you'll be able to find it over on my YouTube channel, Balanced Wellness with Beth. Oh no, nobody can hear me on Instagram. Can you all hear me on YouTube? Can you hear me okay? I'm assuming you can because you can. Okay, give me just a second, YouTube folks. We're having an issue with the Instagram. No. Testing. Can't hear me on Instagram? Oh no, I tested this before. Can you hear me on Instagram? Okay. Hold tight, everyone. Sorry about my hand on the YouTube. Hold tight, everyone. Let's see. Why are we having this issue? Let's see. I'm going to try something. Hold tight with me all, please. Just 1 second. All right. Testing. Can you hear me on Instagram yet? Can someone on Instagram let me know if you can hear me? Now my camera's all wonky on the YouTube. Yay, we can't always do this without issues, huh? Oh no. How do I get my camera to refocus on my silly little face? Mark, I need tech support. Hurry. Oh no. Can you hear me on Instagram? I'm going to sign off if no one can hear me, and I'm going to try to reconnect on the Instagram. Fun. All right, everybody on YouTube, hang with me. What's going on, Mark?
Is it not focusing on your camera?
That's not focusing. That doesn't have sound.
All right, so it might be. Is it catching that at all? Because there it is, right?
Yeah, that's just not focusing on me. I don't know. It's great. What do I do?
Okay, so your camera is right here, right?
Uh-huh.
All right, so let's just move this because maybe it's catching.
They can't hear me, though. Why can't they hear me? I tested this before. Hello?
If you move the app, does it kill the... I don't Instagram
Yeah,
Live.
I'm going to have to sign off and sign back on and see if that fixes it.
There you go. But here's what you do. First thing you do is this. Where's your recording
app? The camera's fixed on YouTube. Where's my recording app?
Yeah, you know the Notes app where you can record yourself?
No, I don't ever record myself, love.
Because that's how you can make sure that your microphone's working.
Okay. Voice record?
I don't know what app that is. It comes on the phone.
Oh my gosh.
Hey everybody, don't forget to smash like. Professional live stream family. All right.
Oh, this is so annoying. Brickey does save the day. Thank God for a tech-savvy husband. Last week went so well that I just think I got cocky and thought I could just show up on the
All right, tap your microphone.
Tap, tap, tap.
All right, so your microphone is working. So it could have just been a bad Instagram connection.
Okay, let's try. Oh, every time I do that, my big old hand is on. Oops, we do not need to share that. Okay. Oh my God, discard. This is not. Start. Let's try this again. Okay, we're trying this again, Instagram folks. Can you hear me? Is my microphone working? We've got tech support here. This is the problem with two
2 rigs.
2 rigs.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wait. Nobody's even coming because they're like, we don't trust this girl. Can one of you on Instagram let me know if you can hear me okay?
You're a tree falling in the
Yay!
Air horn sound.
Check support. Okay, no, get out. You just ran into my very real tree.
I dabbed into it. Bye, everybody. See you at 7 o'clock.
Oh, wow. That's a hot mess. Okay, let's do this again. That was really fun. I'm so glad you can hear me. Thank you, everybody on Instagram, for showing up and letting me know that you couldn't hear me. Get out of here. Welcome to Balanced Wellness Wednesdays with Beth. We're going to try this again from the top. I'm so glad that you can hear me. I'm so glad you can see me. Thanks for hanging in there for about 5-ish minutes of tech support. As a reminder, if you're on YouTube, you can just jump ahead when you're watching the replay and skip to chapters and catch all of the goodness by picking the spot you want to jump in and avoid all of this awkwardness, or you could watch it and enjoy a good laugh. My name is Beth Manos Brickey. I am a certified functional nutritionist. I am a level 3 restorative wellness practitioner. I hold a certification in nutritional psychology, and I'm currently completing the certification with NASM to be a certified personal trainer. As a nutrition and behavior change coach, I help all of my clients navigate their nutrition, their health, and their fitness, their mindset and behavior changes with compassion, with grace, and ease. So I'm excited to do this series. And as I mentioned last week, if you joined me, to just have an opportunity to connect with all of you, to get to know all of you better, to get to know how I can support all of you. And I just love the opportunity to hang out. I love the work that I do, and I find it incredibly empowering, and just it lights me up to be able to talk to real people. So it's almost like we're doing these as live podcast episodes. And again, I encourage you, as I'm talking, I'm watching both feeds, and until it gets to where I can't do that and we have to go to one location, I am reading both feeds. So interrupt me if you have questions. I'm happy to stop when I can and answer them. If not, I'll definitely make sure to cover it at the end when we do our Q&A. So while people are loading up, I thought it would be fun to talk about something trendy in the food and nutrition space, and just stuff I'm seeing on social media, and seeing if all of you are seeing this and what your thoughts are on it before we get into the meat and potatoes, pun very intended, of tonight's live stream broadcast. How many people here have been watching the incredible glow up of cottage cheese in 2023? Has anyone noticed that cottage cheese has become the new cauliflower of this year? I see it everywhere. I see it being made into ice creams and blended into, pretty much anything that you can think of. And I'm curious how many of you are loving the cottage cheese trend and all of the ways we're turning cottage cheese into fun, different ways to use it and to eat it. And I don't know, Erica, what is happening here? What is happening where? Can you all hear me? Or are you feeling that that's a response to the cottage cheese, possibly? Uh, what is old is new again. You are so right, CK. I'm getting a lot of no thanks over on Instagram. I'm curious if your hatred of cottage cheese, because I hear this a lot from clients, is it a texture thing? Is it a taste thing? Is it a disdain for a food because it feels diety to you? I would love to hear what you all think. I personally thought that I hated cottage cheese because, again, I am a child of the 90s, and we ate cottage cheese and we ate rice cakes and we ate all of these foods under the guise of we needed to be healthy. Thanks, Erica. Yeah, yogurt is very versatile, and I do feel like cottage cheese is, but I do think that there's a a learning curve / some people love it and some people don't. I'm getting a lot of people saying that their mom loves it. Especially with this person is sharing with a fruit salad. Somebody said, love cottage cheese. Well, only the Kelowna brand. Oh, I love when we get brand specific. I'll tell you all my favorite brand. Love it with a fried egg and salt on top. Someone else shared, I don't like the taste. David Gallo said, I love cottage cheese with pineapple. Yeah, I love it. I love that it is a great source of protein and it can be versatile. I always love also, and I'd love to hear from all of you. A couple of you again are saying it's a texture thing or avoiding cottage cheese, but do like ricotta, which that's always interesting to me. I'm curious if you are a sweet or team savory when it comes to cottage cheese. I have a very hard line in the sand that, well, actually, I'm going to backpedal on that. I generally have always loved it savory, and I didn't think that I liked it sweet until recently. And I'm going to tell you how I found a fun way to enjoy it sweet. Someone said I'm afraid to try it. Don't be afraid. Here's the thing about cottage cheese that I love and why I wanted to talk about it is that it is such a versatile food in that it can sort of shape shift a little bit and kind of turn into various different things. If you can tolerate the taste and if you can tolerate the texture, why not both? Exactly, David. I have become a little bit of team sweet when it comes to cottage cheese. I have always loved it just kind of like a little like of the flaky sea salt and even like a pizza type blend or an everything bagel blend. I love it with like drips of hot sauce on it. I think that I thought for so long I didn't love it because as a child of the 90s, I think that I often thought of as a diet food and it was a food I had to like or I had to eat to be smaller and to be skinny. And so I think I just wrote it off for a very long time. Of course, I also couldn't tolerate dairy for a good chunk of years when my gut health was not awesome. Those days are behind us. She can eat all the dairy and she loves the cheese. And so cottage cheese has kind of found its way back into my life. And what's interesting is that I think that it can be really versatile and we can do lots of things with it, but I think it's super functional. So that's part of why I love it. And I think I avoided it for so long because it felt diety. And when I tasted it and tried it again and realized how it could fit into my days and into my sort of way of eating, I was like, man, this is an awesome way to get a whole bunch of protein in and put some toppings on and make it fun. One of my favorite things to do with it is blend it and put just like kind of either ranch type seasonings in it or even like dill pickly type stuff or various seasonings to kind of turn it into a savory dip and then dip like crudité in it. You can also do the same with sweet stuff. And so you can add like vanilla extract or a little bit of sweetener and dip it with fresh fruit. And the texture when you blend cottage cheese is like chef's kiss. It's really perfect. But recently, I think the way I fell in love with enjoying cottage cheese sweet is I kind of made this, I'm calling it a cheesecake bowl. I blended it. I threw it in the Vitamix, I think. I blended it, put a little maple syrup or honey, I can't remember at this point, some vanilla extract. I put some fresh berries that I mashed up on top, a little bit of dark chocolate chips, and I crumbled a graham cracker on top. Of course, it was gluten-free, and it tasted like a delicious cheesecake situation, and it made me really, really happy. Um, yeah, I'm getting a lot of folks saying that they don't like the texture, or someone said that they don't like the aftertaste. David said you can solve the diet issue by enjoying it with barbecue chips. Touche, you can, and it's a great way to add some to add some protein to offset the carbs and the fat that you're going to get in your potato chips. I love that. I really truly love using it as a dip, so that's a great idea. Yeah, the Ninja Creamy, Jesse, absolutely. I think it would be awesome. What made me think about the cottage cheese trend and just the glow up it's having, everything's a thing on TikTok. The other platform we're not currently live on. There's this girl who has apparently gone like crazy viral. And all she does is talk about how she started eating. Now, I am not standing behind this and telling any of you to do it. And I'm sure there's a lot more to the story, but I thought it was really interesting. And of course, I went down like this crazy rabbit hole. This girl talked about how by eating chicken sausage, crunchy, like raw veggies, cottage cheese, and mustard every day, she claims that led to her losing 80 pounds. Like, I don't know if I didn't look into her full health history and what else she's doing. I'm assuming there's a lot more to the story, right? Like correlation, not causation, or association, not causation. But I'm assuming if that's what she's doing for, say, breakfast or lunch, lots of protein, she's getting lots of fibrous veggies. I'd love to see some more carbs in there. But it's a sort of a lower calorie, higher volume meal. She probably feels really good eating that. It's probably, I have no idea how you would stumble on that combo, but it's very odd, the whole thing, and I've seen, of course, people, like, spoofing it and making fun of it, and it's just her going, "Raw broccoli, dip it in the mustard. Chicken sausage, dip it in the cottage cheese and the mustard." I went down to TikTok rabbit hole yesterday and I was like, this is an entirely like whole world. Anyhow, just wanted to know how you all felt about cottage cheese. Yeah, of course, exactly. CK said, of course it would because she's also eliminating a ton of food choices. Yeah, if she's, I don't know if that's all she's eating. That's my point. Like I said, I don't know how clear she is in the rest of her diet choices. But I thought it was really interesting. And she's now the TikTok cottage cheese mustard girl, and she makes merch about mustard. There's something for everybody out there. At any rate, we're going to dive into tonight's topic, and there is a little crossover with this cottage cheese conversation, and even as I shared a moment ago, this idea that we often like look at certain foods as, oh no 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 no, that's diet culture, that's diet-y, I can't eat that, I no longer subscribe to that. And the thing that I want to remind you is that diet culture doesn't own any one specific food or behavior, right? We've all exercised probably in a very harmful, disordered, and punitive way to try to make our bodies smaller, excuse me, and to kind of like change who we are to fix ourselves, right? Just because that doesn't serve us and it's not an appropriate or compassionate way to engage in an activity or engage in exercise, it doesn't mean we would kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater and simply decide that we're never ever going to work out again because working out is bad because your relationship with it maybe in a previous life or earlier in your journey wasn't very healthful. And I think the same goes for foods, right? The choices we make and the intentions behind them are really what differentiates the food being quote unquote diet culture or not. And I think we need to kind of get out of our heads and get out of our own way and just open up to the possibility of like, what do I like and what makes me feel good? What is the intention behind me choosing cottage cheese, for example? Why do I pick cottage cheese? What is it about cottage cheese I like? Do I like how it makes me feel? If you're simply eating it because you think you're going to lose weight like some girl on TikTok, or because it's the healthful, it girl, summer hot girl food, but you don't like it, don't do that. That's diet culture, right? Same for salads. I've talked about this before. I absolutely love a good salad. I don't eat salad because I'm trying to be skinny or I think it's the right choice. I eat salad because I love salad. Salad makes me happy. It keeps me full and satisfied. I like how I feel when I eat salad. And again, so I share all of this to remind you that diet culture doesn't sort of own any one specific food or hot girl cottage cheese summer. Yes, Mark. It doesn't own any one choice or food or behavior or anything that we do, right? So if we're doing these things in punitive ways or in ways that become problematic for us, obviously, I think that we need to kind of take a beat and take a pause. And the other thing I will say in this world of cottage cheese, and again, as we dive into tonight's conversation, we don't have to healthify everything. If you're trying to blend cottage cheese to turn it into ice cream and you absolutely love it and it makes you happy and it fills you up and it makes you excited and happy, I say go for it. I love that for you. If cottage cheese as ice cream does it for you and like, tickles your pickle, as I like to say, I love it. However, if you're doing that in an effort to be better, to be healthy, at the sort of cost of your sanity, at the cost of pleasure and enjoyment in your food and eating, at the cost of your relationship with food and your body, I don't think it's working for you. And so maybe just have a scoop of ice cream, close up the container, put it away, and go on with your life. So I just wanted to share all that. I don't know how many of you have bought into the what is that? The creamy, the Ninja Creamy? Is that what it's called? Yeah, I think that's what Jesse was sharing. Yeah, that's I think where a lot of the cottage cheese trend has gone. I think if you love that, go for it. So let's dive into tonight's topic. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking about, I don't know if I mentioned, we had so many technical difficulties at the start of this that I don't even know if I got to tell you what we're talking about tonight. Tonight, we're talking about 7 ways to make meaningful nutrition changes without tracking your macros, without tracking your calories. And I want to offer you just some simple thoughts and some things to kind of get your mind started on how can I implement changes to my diet and to my nutrition without it being sort of restrictive and really rooted in needing to kind of count every calorie and weigh every bit of food. And just like I was sharing about the choices we make with certain foods and how we feel about those choices, I want to remind you that a lot of that comes from our intention and sort of our relationship with the food, with, in this case, we'll talk about a specific tool. I don't believe, and I've really kind of changed my stance on this over the years as a nutrition coach, but even personally in my own journey. Tracking macros can, in fact, be a really powerful and effective tool for many folks. On the same hand, I will say that for others, it can be definitely triggering, it can be problematic, and it can definitely lead to like a disordered relationship with food. I've certainly been there in the past, just like I was sharing with the cottage cheese. I've been there in the past with tracking calories and using macro tracking as an attempt to eat less and to be good and to lose weight and to sort of fix my body. Why I share all of this and why I want to dive into this tonight, and before we even get to some of the steps, I want to talk a bit about this concept of tracking, is that we cannot look at anything in absolutes. What is true for one is not true for another. What is true for us at one point in our lives is not going to be true for us at other seasons of our life. Tracking isn't inherently troubled or disordered, or rooted in restriction. And of course, for some, it certainly can be, but often it's due to the intention of that action, as I just shared. If it's a tool of restriction, if it's a tool of punishment, if it's an opportunity for you to be better and to do good and to, push and push and push, it will certainly, I think all of us, I don't know how many of you here can share that you've used tracking in the past in these really harmful ways. It can certainly lead to an unhealthy obsession with wanting to eat perfectly or attempting to do things the right way. So I'd love if you could take a moment and share, again, if you're joining me on Instagram or you're here on my YouTube live, what is your perception of using tracking? Again, whether it's just calories, a flexible tracking approach, or kind of more specifically macro tracking. I'd love to hear what your perception of it is, and maybe even a little bit about your history with it, or kind of what your experiences are with it. I think that tracking can be awesome to create awareness and to self-monitor. I can also see where for a lot of my clients, it becomes what we call a truth teller. And I don't mean truth teller like, na 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 poo poo, we caught you in a lie. You told me you were eating this and look at this. Now you're eating more. Absolutely not. What I mean by that, and I've heard this many times from clients of mine, and I've again experienced it myself, is that sometimes we tell ourselves a story about what we're doing, how we're eating, how bad we were, how much we ate. And we don't have factual data or evidence to back it up. It's just these stories. I've had many clients learn so much about themselves and about their nutrition, about how to eat intentionally and more intuitively, even for their body. They've found freedom with their food, and developed that skill of eating more intentionally through tracking. Again, this is not an opportunity to kind of sell you on tracking. It's not for everybody. But let's say you do have health and fitness goals, whatever those might be. So balancing your blood sugar, improving your energy levels. Maybe you're working on various fitness goals, or you have specific body composition goals, or you're working on compassionate fat loss, right? Whatever it is, maybe you're looking to gain weight and you're looking to increase your lean muscle mass and your strength training, or improving your hormone health, or reducing your migraines. How can you create an understanding of what is helping you, and what is harming you if you don't have some underlying understanding of what you're actually doing? So, as I said, a couple of you have shared. Jesse said, I track my carb intake. I'm glad that that's something that works for you. Thanks for sharing that. I'd love to hear from others of you as I continue on, if that's something that you use. But as I said, it is not for everyone. It can take a significant amount of energy. It can take a significant amount of effort. And for a lot of folks, it can create an unnecessary stress in their lives. BK shared on Instagram, I've definitely tracked calories in the past to be restrictive and to lose weight, but thankfully no longer do that. I have recently become interested in tracking my protein grams during my meals, though. I love that. I love that as a goal, too, to be a little bit more intentional with utilizing tracking with a very specific goal. That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. So I think that it's really important that we understand that for a lot of folks, it can add unnecessary stress, especially if it's a new practice. It's not something that you're just falling back into. If you're maybe starting utilizing tracking in maybe a new way that you never have before. And you all know, if you followed me from any amount of time, I am not about adding unnecessary stress to our life. It's never going to work. And if it doesn't belong there and it's adding stress, it's not working for us. So for many people, it's also not the best long-term sustainable solution, especially if they are hoping to build a better relationship with food. So you're so welcome. That said, I think whether you're looking to transition away from macro tracking, or you've never utilized tracking of any kind, you know that it doesn't align for you right now, or it wouldn't be supportive, I want to share some quick tips on where to start. So let's dive in for 7 compassionate and meaningful nutrition changes you can make without tracking macros and without tracking your calories. So the number one thing that you can do right away that does not require any sort of tracking is to just simply, as basic as it may sound, but you may be surprised at how infrequently you're doing this, is to simply aim for at least 3 balanced, well-rounded, judgment-free meals every day. And then I would say I don't like to be kind of prescriptive with snacking because this tends to be very individualized. How much are you eating at those meals? Are you someone who feels better just snacking, or do you do better with 3 large meals that kind of hold you over? If you are snacking, I would still encourage you to focus on balance and for them to be well rounded. But I think this is something I utilize a tool and a method called the party plate. If you follow me on Instagram, I've shared various resources there, as well as if you're on my email list, I've shared it there. I recommend using this as a checklist of sorts to sit down and say, is this meal well rounded? Is this meal balanced? This helps to make sure you're getting adequate protein at every meal, that you're getting fiber rich, complex carbs, healthy fats, nutrient dense veggies at all of your meals. What I like about focusing on something like this is it is not about what to avoid or to restrict or to take away. Rather, it's focusing on what do I need to add to this meal to make it more complete, to make it more balanced, to make it more nourishing and satiating. Balancing your blood sugar is also part of what we kind of get as a result of eating more balanced, well-rounded meals. And that also, all of this helps to keep you fuller and more satisfied for longer, which again, in the long term, is going to help you achieve those goals. And there's absolutely no need for tracking macros. CK shared, I've tracked both exchanges and calories. Excuse me, it has a tendency for me to lead to restriction and obsession. I'm glad you know that about yourself. I think that's super important. I like the other person's idea of tracking protein. Yes. Maybe also fruits and veggies. Yeah, I love that. And so I think some of what I'll share in a moment is going to also kind of help you with exactly that. But thank you for sharing that. Edward shared, I usually eat one snack instead of a breakfast, then lunch and a good dinner. Awesome. I always love hearing how people have learned along the way to find the approach that works for them. The bonus tip to this number one of just aiming to eat at least 3 balanced, well-rounded, judgment-free meals every day. I think this is really, really important. It's to make sure that you eat food you enjoy. I know that sounds like duh, no shit. But if you are not enjoying what you eat, then you're never going to stick with whatever plan you're working towards. So make sure that your meals include some amount of pleasure and joy so that you are creating habits that are in fact sustainable. So the second tip I have for creating more compassionate and meaningful nutrition changes that do not require you to do any sort of tracking is kind of tracking adjacent, I will say. It's using something that I teach called the hand portions method. And again, we're utilizing this as an opportunity to focus on what can I add to my meals, to kind of check in with yourself. What might I need more of? And what can I add to this meal to make it more balanced? And I often recommend my clients use this in combination with the party plate. And this can help you to focus on balance and getting enough of the right things that are going to help you to feel nourished, to feel satisfied, to feel satiated, and to be able to kind of make it to the next meal, whenever that is for you. Inside of my self-guided program called Empowered Nourishment, we actually cover this in great depth and understanding why the hand portion method is so effective, how much might be right for you. And I also offer an additional tool within the program called the mealtime matrix. And that helps you to take all of this and kind of put all of it together. It helps you to say, okay, what proteins would be right for me? What carbohydrates, what are complex carbohydrates? What are some ideas for nutrient dense veggies? And how can I kind of take all of these pieces and put it together? And again, focus on eating intentionally and compassionately making choices without having to track anything, without having to track or weigh or measure in any sort of way. Really to kind of overly simplify the hand portion method and just give you a starting point. Again, this is just a starting point. You may need much more than this depending on how active you are, your body size, your goals, obviously age, gender, all of these things affect how much we need to eat. But I would say for the average person, we want to be having at least a minimum of one palm-sized serving of lean protein. We want to have a thumb-sized serving of fat. This is assuming that it's not included in your protein, and that one thumb-sized serving of fat might also be what you cook your food in. So your olive oil, your butter, your ghee, other oils you might be using. At least a fist size serving of non-starchy veggies. I encourage you to just go ham, pun always intended with the foods. Go ham on the veggies. Eat as many as you'd like that'll keep you full and satiated. And then approximately a cupped handful of starchy complex carbs. Again, if you need some deeper understanding of all of this is what I cover in Empowered Nourishment, my self-guided nutrition program. And it really helps you to get an even deeper understanding of how to use this method, as well as others, to find what's right for you and what foods would fit. So the third thing you can do is to eat at regular intervals so that you can begin to strengthen your hunger cues. Again, I think when we get into the world of tracking macros and calories, we can kind of lose touch with what do I need, what do I want, what is right for me, what actually helps me to and to hold me over. And so I encourage you to, especially if you struggle with those hunger and fullness and satiety cubes, I encourage you to avoid going longer than 5+ hours without food. Um, Going long stretches without food or skipping meals for a lot of folks can lead to low blood sugar. It can lead to something I call chaotic eating, where you're thinking, oh, I read online that my mitochondria respond so well to fasting, so I'm going to fast. And meanwhile, you feel like hot garbage because your blood sugar is dropping. And then you get sort of to a point where you're rebounding and overcorrecting and sort of eating beyond your caloric needs even. It's kind of overcompensating or feeling out of control around food later. So we don't want to go long stretches. And you may not also, for most people, they don't feel good when they just graze all day. Your GI tract and your digestive system needs some time and space to do its job, to just clean up, to digest, and to absorb your food, and then to rest before your next meal. So again, if you are someone who fasts and you feel incredible, I love that for you. Keep going. If you are struggling with your health in any way and you're looking to make meaningful changes to your nutrition and your diet, and you're not looking to do any sort of tracking just yet or ever, maybe just focus on, you know, beginning to kind of keep some regularity with your meal times. Again, inside of Empowered Nourishment, we have an entire lesson all about meal timing and meal frequency. It offers insight into how to implement this and what is right for you. Generally, this is again a general statement, a little asterisk of nuance for everybody and individuality. Every 3 to 4 hours when you are awake is a really good starting point or a good rule of thumb. Oh my gosh, excuse me. As I said, if you enjoy fasting, I'm not going to talk you out of that. That's not my job, but I encourage you to keep some regularity. Jesse shared on YouTube, I hate when my blood sugar goes low. I get crazy and I become a food monster. Yeah. And that's what's so important. I think a lot of times people have this incredible fear of high blood sugar, eating in these ways to avoid high blood sugar. But low blood sugar can be just as catastrophic and impactful for our health and how we feel and our energy levels. And we don't want to experience low blood sugar because our body will rebound into high blood sugar, and it's creating an unnecessary stress on the body. It's putting a burden on your adrenals, your entire HPA axis. So eating at regular intervals to strengthen your natural hunger cues is something you can do without any tracking, without worrying about macros, without worrying about calories. My next tip is something that we utilize over here. It's something I call component meal prep. So instead of thinking of meal prepping and meal planning and batch cooking as this big production that needs to be fancy, I really encourage you to maybe think about how you can utilize and think about meal prep more like component prep. And so what is that? That's buying and prepping individual whole food ingredients and treating them as components, and most especially components I encourage you to consider that are incredibly versatile. that you can make various meals with. So, not stressing about specific recipes, right? It's what I often call that half assed cooking. I always like to remind people that every meal does not have to be a special occasion. It doesn't have to have a special name or a title or be Instagrammable. Sometimes the best and most effective meals are are shit thrown into a bowl that have no name, right? I think about this stuff as a means to an end, versus kind of this special occasion or some advanced like culinary experience. Now, what I love about this is if you're thinking about your food as components and thinking about these components as being ultra versatile, that you can say, hey, I've got this protein and this starchy carb, both ready to go, and these non starchy, fiber rich veggies. All I have to do is put them together and make a taco bowl, make a scramble, make a hash, make a salad, make a burrito, whatever it is that you love. It's just naturally encouraging you to cook more at home. It's encouraging that you're eating more whole foods versus ultra processed or takeout. Of course, as I shared a moment ago, that every meal doesn't need to be a special occasion. And sometimes we just got to get it done. It's a means to an end. To go back to what I shared earlier, I still think that we need to prioritize pleasure and joy. Those should be included whenever possible in our meals. Because again, I don't care how good you are at component meal prep, how good you are at the hand portions method, or any of the other things that I'm talking about tonight. If you don't love what you're eating and it doesn't bring you joy and pleasure, you're not going to stick with it. And therefore, it's just not going to work. It doesn't matter how much I tell you it is. Let me read a couple of the comments here. Jesse said, I have to remind myself, just have 15 carbs until it goes up. Oh, talking about blood sugar. Yeah. I think it's important to find your sweet spot, whatever that is for you. So we're at number 5. Before I continue, are there any questions so far on those first 4 tips? Anybody have anything to share, or any of those that you're already currently using that you found great success with in your own journey? I'd love to hear, if you're joining me on Instagram or on YouTube, if any of you are using any of these. I missed where you said, excuse me, Shoshona, where you shared judgment-free. Yeah, I think it's really important that that's a big part of all of this. So I encourage you to use the chat box or the question boxes on both places if you have anything to share. Moving on for the last 3. Number 5, things that you can do to make meaningful changes to your nutrition without counting macros or calories. Number 5, I think, is one that gets highly underrated. Especially, I see it a lot in the people who get so obsessed with macro tracking and does it fit my macros? Something that you can do that doesn't require any counting or any sort of tracking is to prioritize variety in your diet. So challenge yourself whenever you can to eat the rainbow. So if right now you're not eating a lot of colorful, nutrient dense fruits and veggies, maybe it's try to shoot for hitting the rainbow in a week's time, right? Maybe if you're doing really great with getting enough vegetables in, but you really want to sort of create a lot more versatility and a lot of variation in your diet, and of course the nutrients you're consuming. Maybe it's in a day. Maybe try to shoot for eating the rainbow worth of whole foods in your day. Prioritizing variety in your diet just naturally encourages more health promoting eating behaviors, right? It inspires you to also be more adventurous and creative in the kitchen and with food and eating, and more of that pleasure and joy. And again, it's more of this focusing on what you can add versus that subtracting. What do I need to take away? What do I need to restrict? When we fill our meals with nutrient dense foods, often that naturally means there's less room for those ultra processed foods that may not align with our current health goals. David shared, definitely been trying to have a more balanced breakfast than just toast and coffee. Notice I feel better throughout the day when I do. Yeah, I love that. Well, I love a good breakfast, and it's actually something I've been working on with Mark this year. So if you need any tips, I'm happy to help you. Always ask questions. Number 6 is to use food and mood journaling. So I know that we're talking about how to get away from tracking macros and calories, but that doesn't mean we have to, again, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Where did that saying come from, by the way? Throw the baby out with the bathwater. That is such a weird one. Do you ever think about these things that we just say in a conversation, and when you think about it, you're like, that's so weird? Um, Using food and mood journaling gives you an opportunity to not hyper focus or fixate on quantity, but it gives you a tool to create more self awareness and self monitoring. And again, those are the things about tracking that I think can be so impactful and beneficial. So if tracking data like macronutrients and or calories isn't aligned for you at this time, again, very good reasons why it may not be, then maybe connecting with and reflecting on how you feel. And I don't just mean physically, of course, physically, but also mentally and emotionally, how you feel when you're making certain choices with your food or certain eating behaviors or even environments, or when you're eating specific foods. This is what I think is often missed with traditional tracking and traditional calorie and macro tracking. I think it's a really awesome opportunity to connect with, how do I want to eat? What makes me feel good? What do I like? Right? Food reflection journals or apps or any of these tools can help you to examine and stay curious about your feelings around foods and meals. And again, I don't just mean physical, I mean, what are your emotional feelings around the way in which you're eating? It also gives you an opportunity to tune into your hunger and your fullness, and even clarify if maybe you're experiencing any fear around the foods that you're eating or avoiding. This can bring awareness to, again, what is actually happening, not just what we believe is happening or the stories that we're telling ourselves about how we're eating. We don't know what we don't know. And I think the beauty of tapping in and creating some amount of self monitoring is it kind of shines a light on things that we may not be willing to see. Or again, stories that I've shared a couple times tonight, this idea of truth telling. I actually had a client who didn't want to track. She had a history of disordered eating. And of course, I supported her in that. But at some point, we were having a discussion about one of the biggest things she was struggling with was overeating in the evening. And she had all of this guilt and shame around it. And I said, it's hard for me to really comment or offer input without knowing what you're doing during the day. And so she finally agreed to doing some tracking so we could kind of both look at what she's doing and really get an understanding of what might be leading up to that, not just placing judgment upon the choices and the behaviors she was engaging in the evening. And sure as shit, which I knew was going to be the case, she was incredibly undernourished during the day. She was drastically under eating, both in calories, but significantly or specifically, excuse me, on her carbohydrates. So again, this goes back to that chaotic eating, that under eating and undernourishment all day led to sort of this overcorrection in the evening, which meant she was just eating beyond, at some points, her caloric needs, because her body was just starved. It needed more energy. It needed more fuel. So of course, that's what happened. And she finally looked at it and said, wow, this has been incredibly eye-opening, because it's essentially, she was the one that used the term, this is like a truth teller. It's actually telling me to shut that voice up that's telling me I've overeaten, you've already had too much, don't eat dessert, don't eat a second serving at dinner, don't have the carbs on your plate with your dinner because you already ate too much. And it gave her an opportunity to really see that that wasn't, in fact, true. There's no evidence of it. She just had told herself for that for so long, she had truly started to believe it. So tracking of any kind, but specifically food and mood journaling, gives you an opportunity to bring awareness to what's actually happening, not just our beliefs and our stories. And I can't tell you how many times clients restrict food, just as I shared with this particular client, because they are convinced they've already eaten enough or too much. But on the flip, as someone shared earlier about just tracking protein, I can't tell you how many times people are like, I eat protein at every meal, I'm getting enough protein. And we look and my gosh, they're barely hitting the RDA, right? The recommended daily allotment from the FDA. I should know that. And they're not eating anywhere near enough. And they would have no idea unless they were doing it. Same with veggies and fiber. So by keeping a journal of what you eat and what you're thinking when you eat it, as you eat it, before you eat it, and what you're feeling, you might discover causes for eating, and the subsequent feelings and thoughts as well, that have nothing to do with your hunger and fullness. And so it just is an opportunity to kind of connect with yourself and create that self-awareness and the self-monitoring. In order to understand your own motivations, when you're doing this with tracking of any kind, in order to understand your own motivations, the goal with these tools are to watch and record, as I shared earlier, without passing any judgment, without attaching any significance or morality. And then what you do is you look for patterns or trends that you would like to work on or change over time. Shoshona shared, definitely eat differently depending on moods. Absolutely. I think that's, part of being a human. Over on Instagram, Artem shared, for me, the problem is I often eat without hunger. It's like my mind says I need to eat. I think it comes from under eating. Absolutely possible that that's the case for sure. And it's, part of what I shared earlier. I'm not sure if you were on when we were talking about eating at some amount of regular frequency, even if your hunger cues aren't quite there. Eating at regular intervals and engaging in sort of regular eating frequency can help to strengthen those hunger cues, and utilizing things like a food and mood journal or just reflective journaling about what you're eating and how you feel can start to show you, is it possibly you're under eating? Is it related to our moods? Is it related to stress? There's so many factors. But I think it's most important first that we give our body an opportunity to utilize and to communicate with us true hunger signals. So many things affect our hunger signals. I don't ever want to oversimplify this. Past trauma, PTSD, a diet rich in ultra processed foods. So many things can impact underlying health conditions, medications, supplements. The list goes on. Again, there's an entire lesson inside of Empowered Nourishment that goes through hunger signaling, fullness cues, and things to look for, and how to begin to strengthen that communication. But I appreciate you sharing that. And I certainly know you're not alone, and I've experienced that myself. Jesse shared on YouTube, well, unfortunately, I have to eat every day and track my carbs, figure out how much I need to take. Humalog. Yes. Yeah, I think that's, for some of us, if our health and our current health state or potentially underlying disease is a part of it, it's a very important thing. And I think it can be a really helpful tool. So lastly, with ways that you can make meaningful changes to your nutrition and to your diet that do not require macro tracking or calorie tracking, the last thing I'll share is to just check in, to stay curious and to recognize, do I have hidden food rules or arbitrary restrictions, or am I experiencing any sort of fear around certain foods? When we open up this conversation and get radically honest with ourselves, it can also help us to create more flexibility. Even if you are working to create some amount of restraint or discipline or to make some changes with your nutrition, this can help you to begin trusting yourself with food and to know that it is okay, and you can trust yourself to make and to create sustainable and flexible guidelines that fit into your goals and align with your core values, without being afraid that it's going to turn some corner. But we first have to get radically honest and ask ourselves, am I restricting foods arbitrarily? Are there foods I'm afraid of? The fastest way to become obsessed with or to feel addicted to a food is to restrict it. I think the only foods we should be avoiding are foods we just don't like, foods that are covered in mold and are spoiled, or foods we're actually reactive or intolerant to, or just make us feel like hot garbage. Other than that, I think all foods should be on the table. And when you do food and mood journaling and reflective journaling about how foods make you feel, you're going to start to create a personalized, customized plan that is developed for you, that isn't a set of rules or doesn't have a trendy diet name. Let's see. Artem said, maybe calorie counting BS brings a lot of stress for all of us. Absolutely. Only our body knows how much and when to eat. Maybe I'm wrong. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think you're right. I think for some people, they may not have the ability to tune into the communication from their body. Because here's the thing. We can use calculators. We can calculate what our maintenance calories are, or our deficit calories are, or our bulk calories are. But all of that, until we actually do some amount of tracking for us and actually look at what we're doing and what's working, it's just based on, assuming your body is functioning in the way that someone of your height, your age, your gender, and your activity levels should be. And so it's BS in that we don't exist in a test tube. Our health history, our dieting history, our genetics, our underlying health conditions, our environment, and so many other factors impact how our body utilizes those calories. And so when we just use numbers as a tool and we don't tune into ourselves or even look at what is true for me right now and how do I move from this current space I'm in, we're removing ourselves, and we'll never have that body wisdom. We'll never have that self-trust. We'll never have that really intimate and intuitive and free relationship with food in our body that I think all of us are designed and hit this earth being designed for, but we just lose touch with it because of all of this garbage and messaging and all these other factors. So obviously these 7 items that I just went through are absolutely not a comprehensive list of things you can be working on or meaningful ways that you can make changes without tracking. But after working with clients in some capacity since about 2015, these are what I find to be some of the most effective strategies for making meaningful changes to your nutrition without strict rules, without black and white thinking or obsessive tracking. Shoshona wanted to know if this counts even for Mickey waffles. Yes. Mickey waffles can fit into a healthy lifestyle. I am living proof. What I want to leave you with is this idea, and then we'll kind of move into Q&A, and I'd love to answer any questions that you all have about any of this. But I want to remind you that what works for you will work for you. And what I mean is, if you have a friend who is having great success going low carb, eating keto, cutting out sugar, eating clean, and not eating any processed foods, and they have hit their health goals and it is sustainable for them and they are just riding that train, but you aren't going to stick with something like that, it's not, if like even the idea of it makes you angry, or if you do that and you feel like shit, or you can't be consistent with it, then it's never going to work for you. It will likely never be something that works for you. Now, does that mean it's not working for your friend or it's not a good choice or a road for them? No, if it works for them, it works for them, right? If someone else is counting calories and macro tracking and eating low fat and they're having success, but that doesn't work for you, then it's not going to work for you ever. Same with, again, clean eating, carnivore, whatever. Again, this goes back to where do these sayings come from? But there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I'm not just talking about body composition, fat loss, and changing the physical shape of our body. I'm talking about achieving things like balanced blood sugar and improving your energy levels and maybe, yes, compassionate fat loss. Thank you, Artem. You're welcome. And thank you. Our dog is adorable. We have some good, cute puppies. Whatever you choose when it comes to your nutrition and your diet, if you aren't happy, if there isn't some amount of enjoyment, if it isn't something you can imagine yourself doing long into the future, you are not going to stick with it. And nourishment is not just about calories and specific nutrient profiles. We need joy, we need pleasure, and we need to want to eat the ways that we eat. Does that mean that we may need to make some concessions and implement some discipline? Sure, possibly. But what I'd love to hear from all of you joining me on the live before we wrap it up. What works for you personally to make more mindful and compassionate choices with your nutrition that don't involve tracking? I'd love to hear if there's some things that you've experienced. And again, maybe tracking is something that helps you to achieve these things and you have a really great relationship with that. And again, I use tracking several times a month. It's something that I've had good success with and I think is really a helpful tool. And I've really changed my stance on it, but it is not for everyone. While I'm opening it up for questions, please, questions about what we talked about tonight or any questions at all related to nutrition, health, fitness, personal questions within reason. I do want to share that if you are looking for more support, I mentioned it several times this evening, I have a accessible and self-guided program that I created this year and launched called Empowered Nourishment. This is my self-guided nutrition foundations program based on my signature methods that I use with all of my one-on-one clients, as well as with the Trust and Thrive Academy. When you sign on and purchase Empowered Nourishment, you get instant access to everything from foundational nutrition, including what to eat, how much to eat, some of these methods we discussed tonight, obviously in greater depth, when to eat for you, meal timing, hunger cues, all of these important things, portion sizes for you, how to support digestion and gut health, blood sugar balance, stress management, habit and behavior change work, mindset work, emotional eating, and so much more. There are 9 modules of learning in the program and over 20 incredible resources and guides for you to download and to take with you and to support you in your journey. And you get lifetime access to the program. Sarah shared to pause and ask myself if the food I'm about to eat aligns with my goals and how I want to feel. I love that. That's such a powerful way to connect with yourself and check in. And really, something that I hear and talk about a lot with folks is that it's important to understand that a lot of times what we perceive as a lack of self-control is simply a lack of self-awareness. When we aren't present and making mindful choices, we fall into automatic mode. And a lot of times we're just making choices that are patterns we've always engaged in. Last two things I want to tell you about. Trust and Thrive Academy will be coming back late summer. The doors will open. This is my signature small group coaching program. We have 8 weeks together in a fully immersive small community. More updates coming soon. And if you're on my wait list for Trust and Thrive Academy, you will be the first to be notified, as well as have some exciting bonuses. And lastly, I do have a couple of spots available for one-on-one coaching at the end of July. All of those links can be found in my profile in Instagram or underneath the YouTube video. Any questions? Can I answer any questions, or anybody have anything they'd like to share in relation to what we discussed tonight? I appreciate all of you being here and putting up with the technical difficulties at the start. I'll have to cut that out on the YouTube. I appreciate all of you and all of your wonderful shares and questions. Any questions I can answer before we wrap up? I'm excited to see you all again next Wednesday, so I hope you'll join us. Same time, same place, hopefully without any audio issues. No questions? Oh, you're welcome, Sarah. You're the best too. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Was this helpful? And do you feel like you're kind of walking away with some things that you can focus on if you are looking to make changes with your nutrition, with your diet? Are you taking away some nuggets, as Mark calls them, chicken nuggets, things to add into your days? Thanks, Edward. I appreciate it. Thanks, Dimity. Thanks, Barb. Thanks for being here. Yay. Okay. Jesse said, my blood sugar is doing very well now since I'm taking a new insulin. Yay for finding the right thing for you. I love that. Wonderful. Awesome. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for being here. Bring your questions for next week. We're going to keep it light and have lots of space. Oh, Artem said, what do I think about eating at night shift or not? I think this is a tough answer that nobody likes to hear, but I think it depends. I think for a lot of folks, eating before bed can be a really powerful way to stabilize your blood sugar. So if you're someone who wakes up between the hours of 2 and 4, a lot of times this is a result of blood sugar drops and your body kind of overcompensating and raising your blood sugar. Cortisol is involved in that process, which can make you wake up and sort of feel alert and have a hard time going back to sleep. For individuals struggling with their sleep, I love a bedtime snack, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as small as a small serving of some sort of carb and a little bit of protein or fat to kind of stabilize your blood sugar when taking in that carb. So it could be some sort of crackers and some sort of meat that you enjoy. It might just be like yogurt with a little bit of fruit on it, cottage cheese to bring it back to the start of the call. The Federalist on YouTube said, so like 24 ounces of beer or so. Yeah. Perfect bedtime snack. I love that. No, I think if a bedtime snack supports you and your goals, I love it. I think the bullshit we were told in the 90s of don't eat after like 8 p.m., I think Oprah really kind of sold us on that. I think that it's just a load of shit. Nothing substantially different happens after 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So I think if a bedtime snack is supportive of your goals, it is a really awesome tool. And yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid of bedtime snacks. I think especially if you have an early dinner and you are someone who struggles with blood sugar and excuse me. Excuse me. Hold on. If you eat an earlier dinner and you struggle with blood sugar balance, it's a great way to stabilize your blood sugar. So hopefully that helps. Uh-oh. It might be that might be my throat saying I've talked too much. Excuse me. I think I missed a question. I missed the first part of it, but appreciate what I heard. You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Oh no. You're so welcome. Moscow Mule or beer. Great choices. Yes, Oprah had a lot of far out things to say. Oh no. All right, that might be my cue to sign off. So I've overstayed my welcome. I appreciate all of you. Join me next week if you have any questions or things that come up after thinking about the things that we talked about tonight. If you missed the first half, go back and check it out on my YouTube, where you will find the chapters, which will allow you to jump ahead and jump through my mumble jumble stuff at the beginning with the technical difficulties. I will see you next Wednesday for Balanced Well. Take two. I will see you next Wednesday, same time, same place, for Balanced Wellness Wednesdays with Beth. I should have picked an easier name. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, be well.